Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, multi-billion-dollar space, the analytical instruments market. We're going to break down the real strategic maneuvers driving this sector, and we'll be using a pretty fascinating case study to see exactly how the biggest players are positioning themselves right now. So, let's jump right in.
Here's our roadmap for today's breakdown. We'll start with the macro HPLC market landscape, then look at the leaders in the matrix, dig into Waters Corporation's financial engine, explore some key growth tailwinds, and finally, unpack the impact of their massive BD merger.
All right, starting with Section 1, the HPLC market landscape. To really wrap our heads around this sector, we first have to ask what is actually driving this multi-billion-dollar lab separations market. You know, high-performance liquid chromatography, or HPLC, instruments might be tucked away in sterile, quiet laboratories, but their ubiquity is staggering. They are, quite literally, the hidden engines running in the background of our modern world.
Just think about the absolutely critical roles these instruments play. We're talking about quality assurance and control in pharmaceutical manufacturing, keeping our food and beverage supply safe, advancing incredibly complex biologics, chemical manufacturing, and rigorous environmental testing. For the buyers in these industries, the stakes couldn't be higher. They simply cannot afford any machine downtime, because in a strict quality release environment, downtime penalties hit your bottom line immediately.
Now, Mortar Intelligence actually warns us against just looking at basic revenue rankings when evaluating this market. And why is that? Well, because daily operational reality is what really dictates purchasing decisions. Real buyer priorities are things like fleet uptime, audit readiness, and global service reach. Can a vendor take a method and standardize it across multiple global sites seamlessly? That is the kind of stuff that truly moves the needle for procurement teams.
Moving on to Section 2, Leaders in the Matrix.
When you look at Mortar Intelligence's competitive matrix, which charts market impact against execution scale, it's pretty eye-opening. Out of 17 companies analyzed, only 4 make it into the top leaders quadrant. And these 4, they aggressively dominate the field. We're talking about a massive 4.7 impact score and a 4.6 execution score. They aren't just large corporations. They're delivering exceptional local service, flawlessly validated installs, and incredibly rapid innovation pipelines.
So who exactly are these titans? The top market players consistently setting the pace are Waters Corporation, Agilent Technologies, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Shimadzu, and Danaher. Now, these companies don't just differentiate themselves by building great hardware. It's their relentless R&D, continuous instrument enhancement, and massive global support networks that prevent that dreaded laboratory downtime we were just talking about.
Let's actually zoom in on one specific case study from this top tier, Waters Corporation. It is fascinating to see exactly how they defend their premium pricing in such a competitive space. Basically, they lean heavily into audit readiness. Take their Alliance IS platform, for example. The whole thing is designed around guided operation, error prevention, and extremely tight traceability. By directly linking their technology to a reduction in lab deviations, they're handing highly regulated labs a very real, very tangible financial productivity gain.
Which brings us right to Section 3, Waters Financial Engine. To play at this level today requires massive corporate scale. Pulling some numbers directly from Waters' 2025 Investor Day data, we see they're scaling operations to address a staggering $19 billion total addressable market. I mean, you need serious, world-class infrastructure to support a global installed base of over 170,000 systems.
And all that infrastructure creates a brilliant cyclical strategy. By serving these high-volume, highly regulated applications, Waters creates a very tight operational loop. They provide the simplified instruments, the informatics purposefully designed for regulatory submission, and the customized consumables. That downstream presence essentially guarantees recurring sales. Because think about it. Once a method is validated on their equipment in a strict pharma QA/QC lab, switching to a competitor's system later on becomes incredibly costly and complex.
That lock-in strategy leads us directly to one staggering number, 31%. In the world of physical hardware and scientific instruments, maintaining an adjusted operating margin above 30% is just, well, it's a massive testament to their immense pricing power and sheer operational efficiency.
To put that 31% into perspective for a second, let's compare it against their top peers in the life science tools sector for 2024. While Peer 4 sits at a very respectable 28.6%, and Peer 1 is at 26.4%, Waters is clearly leading the pack. It's a perfect demonstration of how their laser focus on regulated environments and proprietary chemistry translates into highly efficient financial execution.
Let's pivot now to Section 4, Key Growth Tailwinds. Management has mapped out the exact macroeconomic trends that are going to drive their future growth. For instance, geographic expansion in India is projected to contribute 70 to 100 basis points, so up to a full percent of annual growth. Then look at the scientific trends. The industry's shift toward large molecule biologics adds another 40 basis points. And then we've got the huge trends making headlines daily: GLP-1 weight loss drugs and the environmental testing for PFAS, or those forever chemicals. Each of these is projected to add an average 30 basis points to their growth annually in the near term.
But alongside those market and geographic drivers, there is a massive technology shift happening right now. Labs globally are facing unprecedented staffing shortages, which means instrument makers have to solve for efficiency. So, Waters is deeply integrating AI into their software ecosystems. They're introducing conversational AI search to help customers instantly locate the required methods they need. The results? They're honestly astounding. We're talking about a 60% increase in chromatogram review speed and an incredible 96% reduction in the manual intervention required. This isn't just a shiny new software update, it is fundamentally changing the economics of running a lab.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the BD merger impact.
The entire landscape is set to shift dramatically in March 2026 as Waters closes its massive merger with Becton, Dickinson & Company's Biosciences and Diagnostic Solutions business. This is definitely not just a minor bolt-on acquisition. This is a highly transformative move that nearly doubles Waters' top-line revenue, instantly altering their scale and competitive positioning within the clinical and diagnostic spaces. Now, obviously, an acquisition of this sheer magnitude requires taking on a good bit of debt. However, S&P Global recently weighed in and assigned a stable BBB rating to Waters. As they noted, while leverage is going to temporarily increase, they fully expect management to quickly deleverage, paying down that debt to below 2.5 times within just 12 to 24 months. And that's based on expectations of a successful BD integration, stable revenue growth, and ultimately, even better profitability.
Which leaves us with one very compelling final thought to chew on. We've seen how stringent buyer priorities force these companies to completely optimize their hardware, right? But now, the battlefield has expanded. With severe lab staffing shortages driving a desperate need for AI automation and massive M&A required to hit true clinical scale, we really have to ask, is this aggressive, multi-pronged playbook simply the new baseline requirement to maintain leadership in the analytical instrument sector? It's going to be a fascinating strategic landscape to watch unfold. Thank you so much for joining me for this